everyone, it's Erin Dubich and I am back with the next video in our nutrition series. I'll be talking to you about splurges, treats, and rewards today. And again, to remind you, if you haven't seen the first and second video in the nutrition series, the whole purpose of these three videos is to help you make more healthy and nourishing choices for yourself out of a place of empowerment and love, because what we all really want is the feeling of well-being and joy. And so as I talk to you about rewards, treats, and splurges today, I'm partly speaking from my own experience and things that I've learned along my journey of losing almost 80 pounds the natural, gradual way, and being able to keep it off for many years now. And I'll tell you that I experienced about a 4 to 5 year plateau during my journey. I lost the first 40 pounds in maybe 2 years, 2 to 3 years, something like that. And then I got stuck for a long time. And one of the reasons, probably the primary reason that I got stuck there, was because I was rewarding myself too often. I was justifying having ice cream because at that point during that period of my plateau, I ran 4 marathons and 4 half marathons. So I was running a lot. And that's a lot of calories that you burn when you run. But it's even more calories in a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and half a box of crackers, and some pizza, and a glass of wine or two with my friends. And so what ended up happening was that I, over years, never felt like I made any progress because I didn't. I was continually self-sabotaging myself by saying that I earned that, or I could have that. I could have that now because I did my work, but it didn't get me anywhere. And so in the last 4 or 5 years, I don't identify with that way of thinking at all anymore. In fact, I hardly ever, I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank I had 2 drinks in the last almost year and a half. And with the intention of not doing that, because doing it gives me brain fog and drains my energy, and I don't want those things. I want to feel vitality and vibrancy, and that is the primary reason that I don't drink, is because I want to feel good every day. And this sense of not rewarding myself with food has just gone away as I've adopted a new way of thinking. So I'm going to talk to you about rewards, treats, splurges, and why we seek them. So we are wired to feel good. We want to feel good. We believe that we deserve to feel good. But when we're seeking the glass of wine, the pizza, the cheese and crackers, just overdoing it in general, anything fatty, carby, anything that we think that we can't have, we're doing it because we've experienced, and we're totally responsible for it ourselves, we've experienced some sense of restriction, deprivation, denial, or sacrifice that was too large for us to be able to handle. And so what that can look like is completely having something off limits, like sugar. So say you are the average, beginning at an average amount of sugar, which is a high amount of sugar, and you say, okay, I'm not going to have any added sugar. You can go a day before you splurge or reward yourself. You can go a week. Some of us have more willpower, which is never something that you want to depend on because willpower is finite, but some of us can create more of that, and we can go longer. But what ends up happening when you splurge too much, or when you restrict yourself too much, is that you think that you deserve it because you've denied yourself of it. But then you end up consuming close to, or sometimes more, of what you've just denied yourself of. So it's kind of like it breaks even, and the work that you think that you did doesn't end up having much of an impact on your ultimate goal, which may be related to size jeans or weight or strength or just an overall feeling of well-being. And like I said before, it's self-sabotage is what it ends up doing, this way of thinking of, well, I'll go a certain amount of time, not have this, and then I'll let myself have a little bit of this. That way of thinking will never get you a feeling of wellness and vitality, and it's not a sustainable way of thinking. If you want to create a state of wellness and health for yourself over the next decade or 2 decades or 3 decades or 4 decades, you can't keep cycling with this way of thinking of restriction, treat, restriction, treat, restriction, reward. It doesn't work. What does work and what has worked for me for years is looking at each decision that I make as, is this nourishing for me? Because the way of thinking of restriction and deprivation is that your tank, you actually feel like you're running on 10%, 20%, 30%, because it's like a way of thinking that you create for yourself, that you are deprived. And you can fill yourself up in different ways. So here's a few different tools that I'm going to give you that will support a better way of thinking about rewards and treats and splurges, and how you can feel fuller on an emotional, mental way of feeling about things. So number one is, don't restrict yourself too much in the first place. I see and hear about women all the time trying to consume 1,200, 1,400 calories. That's not going to work for you. What ends up happening is you're not even consuming what your basal metabolic rate needs. So your basal metabolic rate is the amount of calories your body would burn if you laid on the floor for 24 hours. Your body needs energy to regulate temperature, to breathe, all your basic metabolic processes. There's a minimum amount of energy requirements, and it's, for most women, it'll hover somewhere around 1,400 calories. When I estimated mine last, it was around 1,430, 1,440. And even depending on somebody who has more of a muscle, it's still 10, 20, 30, 40 more calories usually per day. So if you're only consuming 1,500 calories and you're going to the gym and you have an active lifestyle, you'll completely burn out and crave and eat an entire pizza. That's not realistic, and it's not what you need to do to lose weight. I would suggest instead restricting a much, much smaller amount. And I'll tell you what, counting calories has never contributed in a positive way to my weight loss or to maintaining my weight loss. If you make nourishing choices, meaning you're choosing nutrient-rich foods around the clock, and you're eating enough of them, and you're kind of like implementing self-care, you're not doing too much exercise, but you're doing some strength training, you're doing a little bit of cardio, you'll eventually get closer to a healthier body size. You don't need to restrict yourself 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 900, 1,000 calories per day. That's setting yourself up to fail. So number one, don't do that. Number two, this is something that nobody ever thinks of, and I read a few books that helped me to think this way, but more pleasure. So when we're depriving of ourselves and sacrificing treats for a really long time, we crave it in part because we want to feel pleasure, right? But we can feel pleasure in other ways, right? I can sit down after I take a shower and give myself a foot massage with a really nice peppermint lotion, and that brings a feeling of pleasure. It fills me up. So when your sense of well-being is nourished and filled in various ways, then that decreases your chance of trying to get a sense of pleasure from food, which is extremely short term. That's why it's so addictive, because the 1 bite, the 2 bites, the 3 bites is not nourishing yourself, so you go for a 4th bite and a 5th bite and a 6th bite, and it doesn't work. But when you do things like allowing yourself to rest on the floor in Shavasana, if you do some yoga, if you just lay in Shavasana for 10, 15, 20 minutes, that can be extremely filling to the soul. If you allow yourself to go outside of the office for a lunch break, maybe sit in nature, but just be in your car and calmly eat and breathe and get the fresh air, that can fill you up. Creating time for yourself to pursue a fun hobby that's not a productive hobby. For me, it's biking, and I don't bike for exercise, I bike for pleasure. So don't try to take something that could possibly be productive and put it in a pleasure category. Pleasure is pleasure. So when you find things that you can do that, like, I will sometimes just give myself like a little hand massage. It's paying attention to the things in your body that feel a little like wonky, and doing some yoga poses for your hips, or getting a massage, or rolling your neck. These are things that replenish you. So when you're feeling replenished and nourished and filled up because of emotional and sensual pleasure, then you're not going to seek pleasure as much from food. I find that the times that I have not created time in my days for 2-3 days, just even as short as 2 or 3 days, if I haven't been able, which is very rare, but I experienced it last week, so that's why I'm speaking from experience, I had not had that much time, as much time as I normally have, to devote to yoga and stretching and just being. And I found myself in the 2 or 3 days that followed that seeking a filling up, this feeling of needing to fill up from like trail mix and chips and salsa and a couple other things that are not all that damaging, but I wanted to fill up just from a sense of filling up, because then you're not seeking it from food, you're not seeking it from drink. And on that note of, I was talking about chips and salsa, what did I want to say next? I'm going to give myself a little pause here. Maybe I'll come back to it. So this way of thinking of not rewarding yourself with food and drink helps you to create a healthy relationship with food and with your body. So when you are still in this mindset of, oh, I earned that, I can have that, or I worked so hard this week, like I can have these cookies. It's funny, people laugh about it, but when you're stuck in the same cycle for months or years, it's not funny anymore to joke about doing those things. And you can feel it in your body when you're kind of lying to yourself of, oh, I can have that, I should have that. No, what you really deserve is some true replenishment. And so why I'm doing these videos and why I'm talking about this new way of thinking about filling yourself up and not from rewards is because you need to create a healthy relationship with food and eating. It's the main reason I've been able to keep 80 pounds off for years. It's the only reason, is because I've created a healthy relationship with food and with my body and with eating. And a lot of that was supported by mindful eating practices. And so next time you're kind of feel this impulse to go and get something or to choose something on a menu because you've earned it, I want you to think about what you really deserve, what you really truly want. And you're not going to get that from food, and you're not going to have to get it from drink, but because of years and years and years of your own destructive patterns and millions of other women that we witness on social media or in our community, or our friends that we joke about deserving this and earning this, we need to break those patterns and really think, what does give me a sense of replenishment? What will help me to feel the way I want to feel while being nourishing and nurturing and not damaging? And so you probably need to spend a little time reflecting on that. I have a list, and I have even talked about this a little bit, and I believe it was the first video. I have a list. Years ago, I created this, I think it was in 2013, of things that were nourishing and nurturing and filled me up, that were good for me and gave me pleasure, and weren't damaging or harmful. And so I hope this has inspired you to reconsider what you think is a real reward and a real feeling of deservingness, because health and wellness is your feeling of deservingness, not a sip of a Cosmo or a bite of a pizza. So best of luck to you all in rethinking this, and I hope that this sets you in a brand new way of thinking as time goes on. Okay? Thanks for watching.